Tuesday. Welcome into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman.
What's up, baby? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
I'm great.
Floyd Mayweather told me to tell you what's up.
Oh,
I got a call from him last night after the debates, believe it or not.
which debate? Ours or the debate?
The debate.
There
The
you go.
debate. You know?
I love it.
There we go.
Want to get into it?
Yes.
About last night, Monday Night Football from the Big Easy. The Falcons' Tevin Coleman rushed for 3 touchdowns. Matt Ryan passed for 2 TDs, and Deion Jones returned an interception 90 yards for a score to help the Falcons beat the winless Saints 45-32. The game was played nearly 10 years to the day after the Saints' memorable return to the Superdome on September 25th, 2006, 13 months after Hurricane Katrina. Stephen A., what was your takeaway from the Falcons' win?
My takeaway was really nothing about the Falcons. I mean, obviously they went into New Orleans. That's not a place they're accustomed to winning too often. It's a heated rivalry. We can all respect that. You look at Devontae Freeman, you look at Matt Ryan, you know Julio Jones is on that squad. You know they have the capability to put up big numbers, Max. That's what you get. But it's especially relevant when you're going up against the New Orleans Saints. Because I think I don't want to sound sacrilegious here because Sean Payton's a Super Bowl champion. And we all know him to be a brilliant offensive mind who's innovative in his own right. And we know how I feel about Drew Brees. To me, he is everything. Without him, they're the Aints. They ain't the Saints. But even with him, they appear to be the Aints when you look at their, cumulative impact. They're 0-3 this year. They lost the opener to the Oakland Raiders 35-34. They lost to the New York Giants thereafter 16-13. And then they turn around and they lose to the Atlanta Falcons 45-32. So they've given up 45 and 35 points in 2 of their first 3 games. Their defense is next to last. Their yards allowed is next to last. They rank 25 against the pass. They're dead last against the rush. And this is a recurring theme with the New Orleans Saints. I peel away from watching them last night something that is simple and plain as this. If we, and I'll ask this rhetorically, if we're going to look at a Rex Ryan, if we alluded to this about Jim Schwartz, that they were essentially glorified head coaches in the case of Schwartz, were in the case of Rex Ryan is. If you're a glorified defensive coordinator masquerading as a head coach, how come the same can't be said for Sean Payton on offense? When you look at the New Orleans Saints, you're basically a glorified offensive coordinator disguised as a head coach. Now, we don't want to stick to that because obviously we're talking about Sean Payton here. He is a Super Bowl champion. Schwartz can't say that. Rex Ryan damn sure can't say that. So I'm certainly not trying to put Sean Payton in their class, in their category. But what resonates with me is the fact that we are now going on legitimately 3 years, arguably 4, where we're looking at the New Orleans Saints and we're saying, what the hell is wrong with your defense? Why can't you get it together? When Rob Ryan first arrived here, the defense was good and then the wheels came off and we really haven't been the same since Greg Williams departed. But you look at them defensively, and 1 year after another, they seem to be a problem on the defensive side of the ball. And one of the reasons why I'm so sensitive about it and relatively hyped about this, Max, is because the quarterback position is the most important position on a football field. You have an elite, perennial, all-pro who is unquestionably a future Hall of Famer in Drew Brees, and you're wasting away the best years of his career because you can't get him a defense. Now, it doesn't help that he's throwing pick sixes that are returned 90 yards. It doesn't help that he throws another fourth quarter interception to neutralize a drive after they were down 45-32. We get that Drew Brees is not perfect. But you talk about a guy that walks into a game saying, I've got to overcompensate because my defense is not going to make it to do it for me. The Giants game was an aberration. For the most part, giving up 35 in an opener against the Raiders, giving up 45 last night, is indicative and emblematic of what we have seen from the Saints defense in recent memory.
Real quick, the second interception was overturned.
Yes, it was.
Or it's just the Saints at home. I mean, before I even get to that, what's the takeaway from last night? There was a presidential debate. That's a takeaway.
Yes.
There was a very moving moment with Dee Gordon and the Marlins paying tribute to Jose Fernandez, where first he bats right-handed, just takes a pitch, and then turns around to his natural lefty position, hits a home run, the biggest home run of his career, crying as he goes around the base paths. That was big. Tevin Coleman and poaching Devontae Freeman's touchdowns for fantasy players, that was a takeaway.
Yep.
But you're focusing on Drew Brees.
That's right.
So I want to touch on the
Brees
quarterbacks.
And Sean Payton.
Because I think you're actually focusing on the wrong quarterback.
Go ahead.
A couple of years ago, Matt Ryan seemed to be ascending to the elite quarterbacks, to that tier 1 group in the NFL, but then he kind of stalled at like a B+.
Okay.
He looked like he was going to become an A+, and he kind of stalled like a B+ quarterback in that next tier. So far this season, he looks like the ascension is continuing to first tier. Now, he has not played very good defenses, so he's putting up big numbers. But the quarterback story yesterday, I think, was Matt Ryan and what this means so far in the season. In terms of what you say about Drew Brees and the Saints, you want to be smart playing daily fantasy? Take all the skills position players, including the quarterback, either Drew Brees or the other guy, at New Orleans. Because that place is conducive to offense. It's a controlled environment, obviously, and the Saints don't play defense. The one time they haven't been involved in a high-scoring game was on the road with the Giants. Otherwise, Drew Brees at home is going to put up big numbers. It's an advantage, almost like Coors Field was to some hitters, especially before they tried the stuff with the humidifier and everything. But originally, when these guys would go from other teams, Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, and become, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth somehow when they would hit at Coors Field, that's almost the effect that playing at home has on Drew Brees and that offense. That's an all-offense kind of place to play. Big numbers will always be put up there, but especially with that terrible defense in New Orleans. That's my takeaway. It's actually about Matt Ryan more than Drew Brees.
Let me tell you why I don't think it's about Matt Ryan, and I think you're wrong there. Matt Ryan, B+ that you threw out there, on the money. The most precise argument you've made since you started doing this show. I'm very proud. I'm very proud. I'm gonna tell you, I'm very, very proud of you, Max. But let me say, but let me tell you this. This same Matt Ryan has thrown for 4,500 yards plus the last 4 consecutive years. He's completed at least 66% of his passes over that same time frame. But the last 3 years, Max, 4, 12, 6, 10, 8, and 8. So even though you say it's about Matt Ryan, I'm saying to you, no, you're wrong, because it's always been about Matt Ryan, and look what has happened. So clearly it's not limited to him. I'm not questioning I don't want to say average, because he's not average. I don't think he's great. He's in between. The B+ grade that you gave Matt Ryan. I think it's consistent. I think he belongs on that level. He's a high second tier. That's what I would say. The problem has not been him with Atlanta. The problem has been what you've had around him. Now, Roddy White disintegrated before our very eyes, because years ago he was an absolute stud, particularly when they went 13-3 that year, and then I believe they lost to Seattle in the playoffs. If I remember, I'm not sure. I keep forgetting that one year where they lost. They went 13-3 in 2012. I think they beat Seattle, but I forgot who they lost to. Forgive me for that. I'll get back to that. The point that I'm trying to make to you, Julio Jones, he's been a stud, but Mike Smith coaching them at one time, their defense ebbing and flowing, not being consistent. The arguments that you make on behalf of Matt Ryan when you say it's just him, I'm saying to you, Matt Ryan has always been Matt Ryan. The problem has been the absence of help that he has received. This year, they seem to be moving in the right direction. They're 2-1. He's completing 70% of his passes. He only has 1 interception in 3 games. That's good.
7 touchdowns.
That's good. Well, I'm not worried about it.
Averaging 320+ yards a game.
Well, wait a minute now, because when we're looking at him right now, again, 300+ yards, because 970 yards, even though he only threw for 240 last night. 20 for 30 for 240. That's relatively pedestrian as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing great about 20 for 30
first of all, the strategy
right,
without White and without the distraction of the argument I should be getting more looks, Julio Jones was not really targeted a lot at all last night. In fact, the leading receivers were both out of the backfield. You look at he was throwing the ball basically to his running backs.
Being safe, which is smart on their part, because you're not turning the ball over, exposing your defense, who you may not have that much faith in. All I'm saying is, when you think about Matt Ryan or you think about the Atlanta Falcons, don't worry about Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's fine. It's the rest of the team. Whereas with New Orleans, Sean Payton, getting back to my point, Sean Payton, at some point in time, are we going to hold Rex Ryan accountable? When are we going to hold Sean Payton accountable for being on the offensive side?
A Super Bowl gives you some equity. No doubt about it.
2012 you're referring to, they went 13-3 and then lost to the Niners.
The Niners,
That's what it
yes,
was.
the Niners.
And the
exactly.
Saints used to be unstoppable at home.
They beat Seattle, lost to the Niners.
Lost 4 of their last games and won 11 in their last 15 there in the Superdome.
18-30.
Lost 11. Excuse me, lost 11. Let's get this straight.
Molly, they
lost
ain't playing
11.
any defense
Yeah.
this year.
The Saints? But I'm just saying, if it'll be the 3rd+ year we're saying that about Sean Payton. How do we get on? I get that he's got a Super Bowl and it gives you more equity. But at some point in time, my goodness, you're the head coach. Could you give us a defense, especially when you wasted away Drew Brees' best years?
All right, moving on to the NFC East. Odell Beckham Jr. balled out Sunday against the Redskins, but he also balled, as in tears. The Pro Bowl receiver was highly emotional, getting in a scuffle with the kicking net. Eli Manning tried to calm him down multiple times on the sideline, as well as the Giants receivers coach Adam Henry, who is Beckham's position coach at LSU and was brought to the Giants partly to help direct Beckham's focus. Ben McAdoo had this to say about his wideout on Monday, quote, "He needs to control his emotions better and become less of a distraction to himself and to his teammates. It's our job to help him with that process and maturing." Max, does McAdoo have a point?
He has a point, but he didn't go far enough. It's not that Odell Beckham is a distraction, Stephen A. Smith. It's worse than a distraction. He's a contagion. Now, what do I mean by this?
Yeah, I need that. I need you to explain that one. Because I heard a movie contagion.
That's right.
I didn't know. I never watched it. I didn't know what it quite meant.
He is a contagion. Now, he's an emotional guy. He's got to be emotional. You got to be yourself. But he's got to somehow bring it in enough that he can also be a leader on the team. How is it a contagion? Richburg gets himself ejected. The first guy, the 2 personal fouls, and he's gone. Why do you think he's so chippy? Why do you think Adams, the guy who walked on the week before, blows what would have been, I think the punt was 18 yards plus 10 yards because they batted out of bounds, would have been half the distance of the goal, 9-yard line. The Giants would have won the game most likely. Would have scored a touchdown instead of having to settle for a field goal. High probability of that happening. Blew the game on penalties. Why? Why was the team so chippy and misbehaved when they were so well-behaved and disciplined in the first 2 weeks? Because they're supporting their teammate. There's good news in the fact that Odell's bad behavior influences teammates. The good news is it's an actual team. He's supported by his teammates. If your teammates don't support you, it won't get that chippy. But Richburg's coming up, on Norman like, oh, you got a problem with my receiver? Take that. And even Adams and other guys were like, okay, this is a problem with our star player. Take that. The rivalry goes up because Odell's emotions, which were not held in check, are bleeding over to his teammates. Now, again, the good news is they support him. And the reason they support him is because he's their best player. Eli Manning was the 2-time Super Bowl champion. But the reason Odell, I think, was getting emotional partly is because Eli wasn't seeing him. Eli was missing him. Eli, great quarterback, had a bad game, and at any rate is not Odell Beckham Jr. Odell's the best player on the team. And as such is in a position of responsibility. When your teammates support you, when they want to hit the other team physically and illegally because that team is taking shots at you in the press and on the field, there comes responsibility with that. And I'm arguing he's the best receiver in the game, and I'm not backing off of that on the field of play. But off the field of play, Antonio Brown and others are more even-keeled emotionally and mature. So the good news for Odell is he's the best, certainly on the team. His teammates follow him. His teammates support him. But with that comes responsibility. I'm not saying, Odell, not saying don't be yourself. You got to be yourself. But you got to bring it in enough and recognize the responsibility that your teammates will follow your lead. I think McAdoo has to sit him down and be like, it's not just that you're distracting them. You're a leader whether you like it or not because of your play. Do you want to be a leader in the right direction or the wrong direction? That's the bottom line.
Couple of things that I want to point out. Number one, very, very nice suit. You look very, very dapper today with the 3-piece suit.
I love
you look professorial, which is a very, very big thing because
feathers turning, got to put on the vest.
Because you threw out the word contagion, and obviously I have an obligation to look out for our viewers, okay? Because we all know the intellectual that Max Kellerman is. Sometimes stuff just fly over your head. So I took the liberty of looking up contagion, if you don't mind. The communication of disease by direct or indirect contact. A disease so communicated. Another third definition was this: harmful or undesirable contact or influence. Which is where you're going about Odell Beckham Jr., I surmise. Which is why I'm incredibly disappointed with your position, Max Kellerman, because last time I checked, correct me if I'm wrong, is Odell Beckham Jr. still at LSU? Is this college? No. These are professional athletes. That means that you go to work. That means that you receive a paycheck. That means that you are considered a grown-up, thereby obligated with the onus placed upon your shoulders to go about the business of doing your job and performing your duties to the best of your ability. Max Kellerman, the brilliant, eloquent individual that you are, I'm sure you comprehend that. Here's my point to you. How are you looking at Odell Beckham Jr. and saying that his emotions on the sideline, which, by the way, were justified, considering how many times you so astutely, Max Kellerman, pointed out that Eli Manning missed him? How is he responsible for the actions of, Richburg and others? I'm just saying to you, excuse me, wait a minute here. Why are we looking at Odell Beckham Jr.? Do you need to reel in your emotions? Whatever works. It happened to be his best game this past Sunday. Prior to that, he didn't even have more than 83 yards in a game for the first 2 games in the season. So what I'm saying to you is that he had 7 receptions for 121 yards. It happened to be his best game. The Giants had a 21-9 lead. They were in position to win. They gave him the ball. He was making plays. And somehow, some way, because he's a bit emotional, because he was balling in a different way, as Molly Wood so eloquently pointed out, because he was doing these things, he needs to reel himself in, because the contagion aspect that you threw out there.
The energy.
Listen, and by the way, I'm not knocking you. I appreciate this because I'm always looking to elevate my vocabulary. I never thought anybody could do it until you came along, so I'm very happy about it. It's just that I'm saying to you, Max, even though the definition of the word is right, I think it's false to apply it to Odell Beckham Jr. because you are stripping the onus, the responsibility of the other players for doing their job by acting like Odell Beckham Jr. influences them.
They are certainly responsible for their own behavior.
Yes.
But let me tell you, as Puff once said many years ago, Stephen A.
Not Shakespeare, Puff.
As Puff once said.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The difference between you and me, as it applies to this argument, the difference between you and me, I tell it like it is, you tell it how it might be.
This
might be.
Might be.
This is the reality.
Range.
This is the reality. Sometimes Shakespeare, sometimes
I don't recall Puff saying that, but okay.
They're both rappers anyway.
I'm saying we'll go with it. I don't recall him. I listen to him too.
Shaky on the term rapper.
Oh yeah.
You saying Puffy, not P. Diddy. I mean, they're all the same, but different times.
No, this is from the Puff era.
This is from the Puff era.
From the Puff era.
I'm just checking. I didn't need to make sure.
Post-Puff Daddy, pre-P. Diddy. Puff era. Now look, you're right. Theoretically, you have a paycheck, you go to work. Why do you worry about what the other dude's doing? Worry about yourself, all that. But the reality is, the group dynamics in the NFL, especially with successful teams, there are leaders on the team. And sometimes they're leaders not because of their personalities, but because of how great they are. Sometimes a guy's greatness puts them in a leadership position, whether they like it or not. And I would never say to that guy, don't be yourself. You have to be yourself. Odell's an emotional dude.
Well, what are you saying then?
He should be, you have to express your emotions. But there is a way to do it where it doesn't go over the top.
So we want to define how he...
Yes, you got to bring it in a little bit. You got to bring it in a little bit so that it doesn't become a negative influence on your teammates.
Don't cough too much because I need to come to you because I need to come to
Stephen A. realize it's a good sign for the Giants that his teammates want to support him.
Don't worry about that. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore that. Let me reel this in here. So, Max Kellerman, a couple questions here. What exact emotion do you believe McAdoo was alluding to?
His temper tantrum on the sidelines?
No, I'm talking about, I know that, but I'm saying which one? Are you talking about when he, the net hit him in the face?
In the foot.
Yes, I've had to see some unfortunate memes about that as a Giants fan, Stephen.
Maybe crying. By the way, he doesn't want to see him getting that emotional over tears.
I don't think it was the crying, and I don't think it was the net at all. I think it was him yelling at cats on the sideline to get him the ball to the point where Eli Manning had to go over there and put his arm around him and talk to him.
That wasn't a problem.
That's what wide receivers do.
Because Eli started getting him the ball, they started moving the chains.
I know that.
When Eli didn't throw him the ball, they lost the game.
Stay right there with me because that's where I'm going. I'm saying that we understand that reality. What I'm saying is if you're McAdoo and the quarterback has to distract himself to go over there to talk to you, Now you might have a problem.
Yeah.
So it amazes me that the astute New York Giant fans that you both are, that you skipped, you're going to bring up him, you know, hitting the net and then it hitting the back. You're going to talk about the ball in a different kind of way. You're going to bring that stuff up and not Eli Manning?
There was some written about that post-game.
I saw it.
Right, sure.
Right.
And the idea is, hey, the quarterback and the coach, if they're dealing with you, they're not worrying about the next play. In fact, I disagree with that premise, and I disagree with the idea that he's merely a distraction. In other words, we have to pay attention to you.
But then we don't have no argument about contagion effect.
No, contagion is worse. What I'm saying is not that, oh, they had to pay attention to you, Odell, you were throwing a temper tantrum. Odell's point was right. It's Keyshawn. Just give me the damn ball. I mean, they had to get Odell the ball. And as soon as they started throwing the ball his way, good things started happening. As soon as that happened, when Eli wasn't missing the target. I mean, Eli wasn't
making my point. What's yours?
The point is his temper tantrums is what he has to get under control. If that's not what McAdoo is referring to, then McAdoo is wrong. His basic temper tantrums on the sidelines, the heightened emotions to the point where his teammates catch those vapors, Stephen A. and start.
Catch those vapors.
That's right.
Catch those vapors.
That's right.
Range. Range.
That's right. I'm changing the definition a little bit.
I understand.
From Bismarcky.
I'm just saying.
I'm changing.
You can't go from Puffy to Bismarck.
No, I certainly can't.
Without telling us. Without telling us. You got to inform the audience.
Yeah, but you're from New York.
You
Stephen A.
got what I need.
Stephen A. You're from New York.
He say he's just a friend.
That was years later.
I'm just checking, man.
You're from New York for 10 straight years. Everyone said got the vapors.
No.
I got to intro that now?
No. I'm thinking about our viewers.
Oh, okay.
We got viewers all over the nation. They ain't from Queens or Brooklyn. They might not know
I also took poetic license and changed the meaning a little bit. The point is, the contagion was the heightened emotional state, the anger toward the other team, the unchecked emotion. Odell can play like that. He can do it and ball out. Not everyone can. It affected the Giants' discipline and in essence, handed them the game. If McAdoo's talking about we have to worry about you instead of other plays, then he's wrong because Odell was right. Hey, worry about me because I can help you win the game.
All right.
But if McAdoo's talking about that unchecked emotions, a bad influence on the other guys, then he was right.
I think your argument would have been far more profound had you not confused the world with contagion. That's just me. That's just me.
It sounds like contagion.
128 yards and penalties. It was a contagion.
Puffy and Bismarck helped you today.
Yes, thank you.
I got to give it to you, bro. I got to give it to you.
By the way, Biz helps the kids too on Yo Gabba Gabba.
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. That's why he does it. Bismarck is no joke.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Coming up next, we're going to your wheelhouse, Stephen A. LeBron James has made a decision that he will not join the anthem protest. We'll react to that decision after the break.
Adios, muchacho.
During the Cavs Media Day Monday, LeBron was asked by reporters if he will stand for the national anthem. Here's King James.
I think you guys know when I'm passionate about something, I speak upon it. Me standing for the national anthem is something I will do. That's who I am. That's what I believe in. But that doesn't mean I don't respect and don't agree with what Colin Kaepernick is doing. You have the right to voice your opinion, stand for your opinion, and he's doing it in the most peaceful way I've ever seen someone do something. You see these videos that continue to come out. It's a scary situation that if my son calls me and said he's been pulled over, that I'm not that confident that things are going to go well and my son is going to return home. And my son just started the 6th grade.
So LeBron there, Stephen A., scared for his son's life, powerful words. How will this anthem stance impact other players in the NBA?
I think the fact that LeBron James is taking the stand not to stand, I think that's going to influence a vast majority of the players within the National Basketball Association. LeBron James is an incredibly powerful athlete. He is somebody, whether they want to admit it or not, he's a model that they try to emulate and follow at every turn. I won't mention names, but there are players, numerous players, that try to dress like him, that try to act like him, that become more business savvy because of him, etc. He is a leader in that regard. He is somebody that they aspire to emulate moving forward. Now, having said all of that, I got a couple of things that I would like to say about this. Number one, I applaud LeBron's position on this. It's the same position that I said that I would take. I would not have done it, but I applaud Colin Kaepernick's right to do it. And certainly I don't think he should be denigrated in any way for doing what he has elected to do, nor those like Brandon Marshall, Eric Reed, and others who have elected to follow. And I applaud LeBron James for taking that stance. I'd also like to point out that I think it's important to recognize the fact that when he brought up his son and how his son is 12 years of age and he's just 4 years removed from driving a car, and if he ends up getting pulled over by a cop, that's something that he has to fear as it pertains to whether or not his child is going to end up coming home safe and sound. But then he went on to talk about all lives matter, et cetera, et cetera. And initially, I was going to say, wait a minute. I was going to hearken back to what I alluded to Cam. Say something or don't say nothing at all. I was going to go the route of pointing out how we all recognize that all lives matter, but because folks from the black community have been disenfranchised for so long and have had to endure so many things that we have had to endure, it's important that when you're talking about your son, even though you are up there and everybody knows your son is black, it's important to mention that word. Because the fact of the matter is, even though folks are getting killed in neighborhoods, whether it's the Latino community or whether it's the white community as well, the fact of the matter is when we're talking about brutality on the part of some police officers, and we're talking about lives being lost, and we're talking about unarmed individuals that are being victimized, primarily we're talking about black people. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. And I was going to say, it's interesting because we see folks taking stances that everybody could agree upon, which is what Max alluded to weeks ago, where you say something and there's no, there's no disagreeable portion to address. When you say all lives matter, who could disagree with that? When you speak about violence, being against violence on all levels, who could disagree with that? So it's not a confrontational stance that's divisive in any way that forces you to take sides. And on far too many occasions, when we see marquee athletes reluctant and hesitant to do just that, to force individuals to take a side, then they come across as too PC and we're ultimately able to summarily dismiss them. I would say LeBron James is the exception, that he is the one guy that you have to give that pass to and not judge him the way that we would judge other athletes. Because when we look at LeBron James today, look at what he's doing with the University of Akron, pledging through the LJ Family Foundation to send 1,000 kids to college. Think about the activism that he partakes in his community, his charitable donations and beyond. This is an individual, LeBron James, that has acted, that has spoken out, particularly with the Donald Sterling fiasco, that has put his name, his money, his character, his reputation where his mouth is. He's done all of that. And when you consider that, then you step back and listen to him yesterday. And while you would have been inclined to say, damn, I wish he would have said this or I wish he would have said that, to sort of illuminate what the real problem is, he is a guy, a walking embodiment as a professional athlete of someone who has been willing to stand front and center and say, I recognize this problem and I'm willing to put myself out here to contribute to fixing it. And when you do that, particularly when you are an athlete in his position, it's nothing short of commendable. It just reminds me of what an incredible role model he is. And I have to give kudos to him and thank him for doing that.
First, I agree with you about LeBron. He is like, there are athletes in recent American life who, a friend of mine made this comment about A-Rod a couple of years ago. A-Rod is so uncomfortable in his own skin that when he talks, he makes you uncomfortable in yours. You just get the sense that there's not authenticity there, and that plagued him throughout his career. Cam Newton gave off a little bit of that vibe when he's made recent comments that seemed empty, seemed like brand management and spin. And also, I feel, you know, when you say who can argue with all lives matter, I think it's important to always bring up the idea of Black Lives Matter is implicit in that is two. Black Lives Matter two.
Right.
If all lives matter, there wouldn't need to be a Black Lives Matter. Okay. The thing about, I want to get to the NBA and what LeBron said about the NBA specifically, because I agree with you. LeBron is comfortable and so seems authentic, and I have no problem with what he said. He commended Kaepernick. He said he's going to choose to stand for the anthem. That's something that he does. That's all good. Here's the thing. You started out by saying you don't think it's going to have, you think that LeBron has an influence on other players, so it will influence other players. I think you're probably right. However, it only takes one. It only takes a single player to stand up, and what we saw with Kaepernick is that guy doesn't have to be an elite player. He has to have some kind of recognition among fans, but doesn't have to be an elite player. It, after all, was not Cam Newton or Russell Wilson who took that stand, or rather seat and then knee. It was Colin Kaepernick, who was at this point a once-upon-a-time good player and maybe some point in the future. The NBA has a little issue here, because since it only takes one, and there are a lot of independent thinkers in the NBA, probably at least the sense is they're allowed to be more independent than in football by the powers that be. I think you're going to have a problem. The NBA, once upon a time, David Stern, the then commissioner, was dealing with what he saw as a perception problem. The league was perceived as a quote-unquote black league because it predominantly African-American players. And how does that sell to middle America and to white America, really? Well, decades ago, the idea was that we have to be so buttoned up as a league, so professional as a league, that no one can second-guess our professionalism, and white America can't write us off as a quote-unquote black or urban league somehow. Strictly kind of ghettoize the NBA in that way. And so there was a dress code. So standing for the anthem is compulsory, unlike in the NFL, where even though also a lot of African-American players, the glamour positions, the coach, the quarterback, was all white. And so the NBA finds itself now kind of backed into a corner of its own making, because there's been a sea change in terms of social progress along these lines. And now the kind of dominant sense in this country is not so much that, hey, you better make sure they stand for the national anthem, although there's a huge population that believes that. There's also a huge population that believes, wait a minute, why can't these guys express themselves? And the NBA, I think, now is desperate not to be in a position where a player sits down and they're forced by their own rules to fine them or suspend them.
Here's where I would disagree with you on several fronts. I understand where you're coming from, but you brought up the dress code. The dress code was in the aftermath of Ron Artest running into the
Malice
stands.
at the Palace.
You know, Malice at the Palace, Palace at Auburn Hills. You have to understand that you have a relatively black product that you're selling to the masses, and what David Stern inherited in 1982, hooliganism, drug use, a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. The NBA was on, the players were on tape delay, for crying out loud. When Ron Artest ran into the stands and you had this issue with, you know, black, a black player and black players, and you seeing white fans getting hit and stuff like that, it was just a bad him, Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson. All
They threw something at Artest, but yes.
That's right, they did throw something at Ron Artest. But remember, the kid that Ron Artest grabbed wasn't the one that threw the cup of water on him. You see what I'm saying? And not only that, you're 6'6", 250 plus, and the little kid, it was
not
a bad look.
I'm not defending Meta.
I know you're not. I'm just talking about the visual. Yeah. It was that.
Who, by the way, is a great guy.
Was a great guy.
Very badly that night.
That's right. Well, he's a great guy. I get it. Just a bad night. Plus, had issues about polling and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So, I'm just saying to you, the NBA, however, in this day and age, is a successful, globalized brand.
Yep.
And because of it, those things aren't necessarily applicable. If there were no Colin Kaepernick, you would have an issue. But if a LeBron and a CP3 and a Melo and a Russell Westbrook and a Kevin Durant and a Steph Curry and a Klay Thompson and those guys don't do that, but some no-name dude playing for the Atlanta Hawks or somebody decides to do it, it's not going to be that big of a deal because Kaepernick already did it. Had there never been anybody, that would be different. But just because
what
one
is
guy...
the NBA's reaction
Well, let me tell you what the action,
well,
you know what their reaction is going to be? Nothing. And you want me to tell you why it's going to be nothing? Because the Indiana Fever of the WNBA essentially did it and no penalty was invoked. So if you didn't do anything to them, you're not going to do anything to the NBA players.
Here's the problem. Even when Rauf didn't stand for the national anthem, right, you know, which is the late 90s.
That's right. Early 90s, actually. But go ahead.
I thought it was 96 or 97. But at any rate, even when he did that, the league wanted it handled discreetly. They didn't want to make a big deal out of it.
They called him. They told him. They told him. I'm telling you what I know. They told him, stay in the locker room and just don't come out, rather than come out and make that kind of statement, because we can't allow that.
Here's the problem.
That was a different time.
Right, here's the problem. There's a different time, there's a rule on the books, and if they are publicly seen in a very high-profile way of taking the rule off the books, then it's like, whoa, wait a minute, are you somehow anti-national anthem? And they're not going to be able to handle a protest discreetly because there's so much attention on the issue. So someone is not going to stand for the national anthem. It will become a story, and the NBA is going to be in a corner. Either we change our own rules, or we have to fine or suspend them.
It was 96.
My only thing that I'm saying, it was 96. The only thing that I'm saying to you is this. If it were a marquee player, you have a different problem. If it's a no-name that takes that position, even though it's still the same problem, theoretically, because the NBA would have to make a decision to do something or not do something, it's going to resonate far more exponentially if a marquee name does it.
30 teams, at least one or two marquee or at least well-known players per team. You're talking about 60 dudes. Someone's going to do it.
I'm just telling you, the NBA can get away with doing nothing because the NFL doesn't have that rule on the books, and people are disagreeing with the player as opposed to the league. And therefore, the league is only going to get into some trouble if the league tries to ingratiate itself into the position of manipulating or dictating an individual act. That's what's going to happen.
So are they going to ignore their own rule, not fine or suspend?
And
that becomes a story.
It'll be interesting to see how they respond. But to your earlier
That's what I believe. I don't know that.
It's going to be, something's going to happen. I mean, we're getting it pretty soon.
We respect LeBron's stance because the guy that talks the talk and walks the walk. Stephen A. highlighted how active he is in the community. To America's team. The Cowboys Pro Bowl receiver Dez Bryant missed 7 games last season with a broken foot, and Sunday he was injured again. Bryant spraining his right knee early in the first quarter, but stayed in the game, caught 3 passes for 40 yards and a touchdown in the Cowboys' 31-17 win over the Bears. Here's Jerry Jones on Dez's status.
He hasn't taken an MRI to my knowledge, and so I'm assuming that he's on go. But I don't. Will he get an MRI here probably later today? Maybe. And but he certainly finished the game out. That's that in and of itself is a good indication. It doesn't mean that he's going to be free of the symptoms or the injury.
But Jerry, right now, it doesn't sound like you have any fear or concern that he's going to miss any time.
I don't want it to sound any way. I'm always concerned. We'll monitor him through the day. It may be that later in the day he'll do an MRI, and if he does, we'll give the results.
Will Kane here with us. You know a little something about the Cowboys. Some might even say it's personal for you, but we're all professionals here.
You know when they say you're not paranoid if they're really after you? I'm not a homer if I'm right. I'm not a homer if they're actually good. I'm just correct.
Being right, always debatable here. Good
yes, hypothetically, that would be true. That's a hypothetical. That would be true.
You know, first of all, let's not listen to Jerry. Jera. Let's not listen to Jera. Because one thing we know he's not is a doctor. And if you're given the choice between pessimism and optimism, he always goes with optimism. After Tony Romo's injury, it sounded a lot like this Dez Bryant injury. There was a lot of silence. And
I'm sorry, you sound a little worried. You sound a little worried.
Here's how I would characterize it.
Yeah, you go ahead, because we just watched this debate last night, so I'm kind of used to that lingo.
Which one?
I'm just talking, the debate, the debate last night.
No, what lingo?
You know
what lingo?
I'm just saying, political lingo. It doesn't matter which side or the other. I'm just telling you, you sound like a politician already is what I'm trying to say. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
God, it makes me want to lean in, but it's going to make me sound more like a politician, I think.
Yes.
I'm cautiously optimistic, okay, about everything to do with the Cowboys right now. First of all, when it comes to Dez, that injury looked awful. It looked a lot, though, like Russell Wilson's bend in his knee, and we know that's a sprain, and Pete Carroll saying Russell Wilson may play this week. So as bad as it looked, I have some optimism that he can play like Exactly, Molly. Came back, caught a touchdown. Caught Dak Prescott's first touchdown. We also lost. The Cowboys lost Lyle Collins.
Not just that we.
We caught that. We got that.
We is accurate. Go ahead. We is accurate.
Go ahead.
He calls McAdoo coach.
That's cool here.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Somebody see the go ahead. That's very New York. So
Yeah.
we also lost Lyle Collins, but Ronald Leary steps in, a guy who's played in 2013, 2014, started all the games, and actually played better than Lyle Collins, thus giving me more optimism. I'm more worried about Tyron Smith being out than Lyle Collins being out. In the end, here's the caution, here's the optimism. It looks a lot like it did last year, guys. It looks like losing high-profile guys, Tony Romo, Orlando Scandrick, Dez Bryant. But the one difference, and here's the optimism, the one difference this year is 2 words. It's Dak Prescott. It's a calm leader at the helm of the ship.
Right.
It's a rush in your face and not panic. It's a 3rd down conversion. The difference is
Ezekiel Elliott.
I'm going to stick with Dak Prescott, Molly, right now.
Okay.
Ezekiel's
Well,
got
tell
a
me when
tiny
you
bit more to prove.
Well, I got good news and bad news for you. Tell me which one you want first.
Start with bad.
Let's start with the bad news for the Cowboys.
Sure. Take it away.
Dez Bryant's an injury-prone player. I think we've seen over the last couple seasons the reason it used to be, when I'd say Odell Beckham's the best wideout in the league, I got mostly Dez Bryant complaints, and I would say, timeout, actually the complaint should be Antonio Brown, then Julio Jones, then Dez, but Dez is in that conversation. I think if you took see which way the wind is blowing right now, I think you get Odell and Antonio Brown and Odell and Julio Jones and A.J. Green and maybe DeAndre Hopkins, and there's a lot of company for Dez because he's injury-prone. Not because he can't ball, he's injury-prone. Now, the bad news for the Cowboys is their quarterback's out, their only real star on offense outside their quarterback is injury-prone, and their running back may not be as good as advertised. That's the bad news. Like Ezekiel Elliott may not, he looked pretty good, but he's running behind a great line, and it's not like his yards per carry are blowing everyone away. That's the bad news. They also don't have a defense. There's some more bad news. Here's the good news. The Cowboys, final bad news. They're going to be last.
Enough with the bad news.
They're going to be last in the NFC East this year. Now, here's the good news for the Cowboys. When you rebuild, you are starting with the thing you most need to start with, which is you got a franchise quarterback in my eyes in Dak Prescott. I think he's the real deal. And you got a hell of an offensive line. So those are the building blocks you most need. The Dallas Cowboys don't have to worry about what most rebuilding teams have to worry about. Skills position players are actually not that hard to find in the draft. The problem is spending all those resources and draft picks year after year on building up the offensive line, hoping to find a franchise quarterback, hoping he exists. Now they can concentrate on the defense, add some skills position players. Going forward, they're in good shape. But this year, it's bad. It's not going to be good for your guys this year, Will. It's not going to be good.
You know, it's interesting. You brought those points up, and let me get back to him because, he's enthusiastic to some degree. He's trying to come across as a little bit cautious, but he is enthusiastic, and very little pleases me more than ruining your days. I actually enjoy ruining his as well.
Well, you have
let me get to you. See, the Dallas Cowboys are 2-1. They got a victory over the inconsistent Redskins, allergic to prosperity. And, of course, they beat the Chicago Bears. And if you want to count that, that's fine. I wouldn't have counted it if they had Jay Cutler. So you're damn sure know I'm not counting it that they didn't. Okay? But as we look at this Dallas Cowboys schedule after San Francisco, particularly at San Francisco next week, which is a game they could lose. Do I think they will? No, but they could. But then after that, they got Cincinnati. They got a road game at Green Bay. They got Philadelphia, who looks like the best team in the division. And then after that, they got road games at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, and then Baltimore. I could see the Dallas Cowboys winning maybe 2 of those games.
Oh, my
possibly losing about 4.
Gauntlet.
And so when I look at it from that perspective, then I also think this is the fun.
They could lose every one of those.
Wait a minute. This is my fun part, Will Kane. This is my fun part right here, because I didn't even bring this up. DeMarcus Lawrence, you heard that dude?
Yeah, he'll be back Monday.
Yeah, back Monday. What was he out for?
You want to say it, you can say it.
What was it?
You want to say it,
Why don't you say it with me?
It's not for me
Why don't you say it with me? Why don't you say it with me?
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
The weed. Okay. And not only do we have Rolando McClain, when's he coming back? When he coming back?
Probably never.
I'm sorry.
Probably never.
Why is he going?
All right, come on, get it out.
I'm just checking. Because you see, the fun part that I love about all you Cowboy, you delusional, pathetic, sorry Cowboy fans, just contaminating our great country, this great country of ours. You understand, with your disillusionment and everything else. What I love about y'all is how y'all just point to injury. Well, Des Bryant, you know, he's talking about he's not healthy right now. He seems to get hurt.
Call me a Cowboys fan.
He missed
Them's fighting words.
He missed 7 games last year, but other than that, he hadn't been injured for the previous 3. But then you talk about Des Bryant. We all know that Tony Romo's not reliable. We'll see what's happening because Darren McFadden, even though you got Alfred Morris and Ezekiel Elliott, Darren McFadden, the elbow injury, what did he do? He slipped on the soap. What happened to him? I don't recall. Was it about a pool?
Dropped his cell phone. Dropped his cell phone.
He dropped his cell phone. I thought he slipped on the soap or something and hit his elbow in the shower. I'm sorry. I got confused. What I'm trying to say to you is this. What's the common theme here? What can happen will happen. And that's what you're missing. The Dallas Cowboys are going to say this again. The Dallas Cowboys have talent. The Dallas Cowboys, from a talent perspective, can compete. Listen. The Dallas Cowboys, from a talent perspective, can compete with teams in the East. The problem, Will, is that whatever can go wrong will go wrong because they are an accident waiting to happen.
I come out here.
And that's what it is.
I come out here.
Yeah, go ahead,
ready to be reasonable. I called it cautious optimism. That's the epitome of running down the middle of the reasonable lane. You two men have made it easy for me to win a debate when your goal isn't to be correct. Your goal was to prod the bear. You just came out poking.
Hold on, no. There's only one bear here. It ain't you. I'm sorry.
That remains to be seen.
I'm sorry, brother. But go ahead.
You still got to put W on the board.
Wait.
You saying the Cowboys won't get but 2 wins against the likes of the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens and, oh my goodness, the Philadelphia Eagles. And by the way, also the Green Bay Packers, who have not shown much yet this year.
2 of their next 6 games. That's not bad. That's not bad. 2 of their next 6 games.
It might be a little generous.
That's right. Might be a little generous.
And you, by the way, saying they're going to be last in the division. I'm very happy to accept that bet. You just want to put your money where your mouth is on that. We can put something on the table. You want to do a Go-Look Hot Spicy contest? You want to do a Wear a Jersey contest? I'm very confident.
We can work out terms. We can work out terms. Giants, Cowboys.
Don't wear a
we can work
Cowboys
out terms.
I like the odds.
Will, your best receiver can't stay on the field. Listen, the offensive line and the franchise quarterback, that is a reason, not for cautious optimism, for great optimism for Cowboys fans going forward. Also, Jerry Jones ceding some control to his son is also a reason for optimism because they've been making some smart decisions in the draft as a result. But this year, right now, Will, they can't play defense.
Max, the flaw
they don't have their quarterback. They don't have their wide out.
You used this term several times, that they're rebuilding. And you were very nice and generous and optimistic about the quality and the status of their rebuilding. But the mistake you made is you thinking you have to empty your gun before you reload it. The Cowboys are playing. They are rebuilding while they are winning. They are 2-1.
While they're what?
While they are winning.
And what were they last year?
And by the way, we're talking about a Terrence Williams brain mishap. The difference between 3-0 and 2-1 against your team.
Pause, please. So, of all the things that I just pointed out, you just gave me another nugget of info to add to that because I completely forgot. I completely forgot about the Terrence Williams brain lock in Game 1. So, in other words, this mountain of evidence that the Dallas Cowboys continue to hand to us year after year after year, and you're just bringing up something else that augments a point, and you're acting like it's going to be an aberration?
Because there's a difference this year. You're right. A lot of things look like
what's the difference? Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott? That's what you are. Dakota Prescott?
That's the answer. Dakota Prescott. By the way, I'm not sitting here just bloviating. The proof is in the pudding. If you watch a game, if you
one touchdown, no interception. One touchdown, no interception. He's got poise. He looks good. He's completed 66% of his passes. I get that. But the bottom. Go ahead, Max.
If Des Bryant is on the field, about which you are cautiously optimistic, I have to admit the Cowboys have a puncher's chance. He's that special of a player. I think Des is a special receiver.
He is.
They have a puncher's chance with Des on the field. Still not a great team, but a puncher's
chance to what?
But to win games. But without Des on the field, which is a distinct possibility, they got no shot. They're done. And Ezekiel, he is a difference maker on the offense. And Ezekiel, because it ain't going to win on defense. And Ezekiel Elliott, Will, you better hope that he gets his game up. I know he had a
bad week to make that argument. Last week was a better week to make that argument.
The first 2 weeks were better weeks to make that argument.
But not today.
He had a good game. Even so, I wouldn't say he was setting the world on fire, and he's running behind a great offensive line.
7 preseason snaps. You might just see the guy working himself into shape right now.
You know, I can't say I'm rooting for him. I'm a Giants fan, but I wish him well.
You know, there's a saying, very, very familiar to most folks, that the best ability is availability. And I guess what I'm saying is there's always a question mark as to whether or not the Cowboys are going to be available
And yet,
that is undeniable.
And yet, they're 2-1.
Oh, they were 2-0 last year.
2-1. Right?
They were 2-0 last year. 2-0. So what happened? What happened? The wheels came off.
You know what happened? Matt Castle happened. Brandon Whedon happened. This year, you know what happened?
Remember when Jerry
Dak
said
Prescott.
Brandon Whedon had the best arm he'd ever seen?
So I told you. I started out and said, don't listen to Jerry.
You need
listen
to get on that radio show.
Listen to me.
We will. Well, thank you. You're going to stay for this next conversation. Speaking of
Why?
big-name players with injuries, Adrian Peterson is ahead of schedule in recovery from MCL surgery. But should he rush back or take the rest of the year off? We shall discuss. These three lovely gentlemen. No one rebounded faster and stronger than Adrian Peterson from his ACL tear on his left knee. And now, according to Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, he's way ahead of schedule in terms of recovery from surgery on his right meniscus tear. He suffered against the Packers in Week 2. Sources telling Pro Football Talk he plans to play again this season. Peterson will not be eligible to return until Week 11. Max, should he be rushing back from injury this season?
Yes, he should be. Adrian Peterson should absolutely come back as soon as possible. First of all, that's who he is. Player's got to be true to himself. That's who he is. He came back from an ACL. No one else quite in my memory ever came back like that from an injury. In fact, he's convinced other players, oh, Adrian Peterson could do it. I could do it too. No, no, no. You're not Adrian Peterson. You're not Adrian Peterson. He's a once-in-a-generation kind of talent all day. But that talent is just about used up. And it coincides with the end of his contract. They're out of the deal. And so if he wants to come back and play, who may be more suited to take advantage of the defense than even the previous quarterback, the way Sam Bradford's been playing compared to the way Teddy Bridgewater is playing, who was ascending, but maybe not, hadn't yet ascended to the level that Bradford's already playing on. We've seen that since he's been on the team. Who wants to show he still has some value on the marketplace because he was averaging fewer than 2 yards a carry when last seen, behind a bad offensive line, blocking for the run, but still, and who wants to maybe squeeze the last bit of glory out of his career, he should come back as soon as possible. Isn't he risking catastrophic injury? He's made a ton of money. He's not going to get a huge contract next year because he ain't going to put up big numbers this year if what we've seen is any indication. And even if he does, he's got maybe one more year in him. A team's not going to overpay for that. In the NFL, they don't get carried away emotionally with what someone does. There are no long-term guaranteed contracts. So if a contract is up, I don't care who it's with at the running back position, and the guy is 31 years old, coming off a catastrophic injury at the end of his deal, that's all she wrote. Might as well come back as soon as possible, Stephen A. Smith, and get what you can get out of the last bit of glory of your career.
No surprise here. I completely disagree with you because you're of the mindset that Adrian Peterson's got to get it while he can get it because his days are numbered. I'm of that mindset that even with this injury, he's Adrian Peterson. He's an exception to the rule. I am mindful of the work that he's put on his body. In 2012, when he rushed for 2,097 yards, he had 348 carries. Okay, the next year he had 279 carries. He got hurt first game into the season, so that's pretty much a wash. He didn't play that year, which was 2014. He comes back in 2015 from that ACL injury. What happens to him? 327 carries. That's what I'm paying attention to. And now he got hurt 2 games into this season. So essentially 2014 and now 2016, even though he's 31 years of age, there's basically 2 seasons that he would not have played. So you got to sit up there and you don't count those 2 years. Even though he got injured, because it was so early and it wasn't wear and tear that was accumulated on his body prior to the injury, he's simply an individual that got hurt, and that's how you got to look at it. So then I look at the ability. I'm thinking about Adrian Peterson wanting money. I'm thinking about Adrian Peterson thinking he's got a legit 3 to 4 years left in his career. I'm thinking about him and saying, even though I believe for at least 2 years, possibly longer, he could be elite, let's just say for the sake of argument, it would have to be ideal for him to do so. Offensively in Minnesota, even though their defense isn't elite, offensively, their defense is elite, offensively, there are question marks. So if I'm thinking about moving on, suddenly I don't prioritize coming back. Now, if I'm chasing a Super Bowl championship and I want to ride into the sunset like Peyton Manning did last year, that would be different. Now, if I'm thinking about my future and years to come, then I'm thinking about a team with a decent to good quarterback, with an offensive line that's worth bragging about.
Who hasn't missed you at all since you've been gone.
Tell me, wait a minute. I'm thinking about it from this perspective. What if Adrian Peterson was in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform? What if Andrew Luck had Adrian Peterson Peterson to hand the ball off to. And Grigson finally did his job and got Andrew Luck a damn offensive line. I'm just thinking it's possible. Go ahead.
These are all what ifs when we have a real world scenario in front of us. First of all, while both of you gentlemen have managed to be wrong on the Cowboys segment, only one of you gets to be wrong in this segment. And it is you, Stephen A.
Of course.
No surprise, right? Adrian Peterson needs to rush back as quickly as possible, but different from Max, I don't think it's for any financial reasons. It's because why? As Herm Edwards often says, you play to win the game. And this is his window. This is the Vikings window. They have an elite defense this year. There's no guarantee that Adrian Peterson is a Minnesota Viking next year. You can play the Colts and the Eagles game all you want, but he has a real world chance this year to compete for a Super Bowl. The Vikings are good. And what's the threat? The Packers, the team they just beat, the Panthers, who are 1-2, they have a real opportunity this year. And I invoked Herm, I love using people's words against them because essentially co-ops them to agree with me. So I remember last week when you said to me, Will, I don't understand if it's just you just don't like winning or what, in reference to Tony Romo's playoff history. This is Adrian Peterson's chance to win. You don't wait for guarantees. You don't wait until you can reduce risk to absolutely minimum. You play the hand you're dealt. This is the all-in hand for Peterson and the Vikings this year. This year, if you have a tiny bit of risk tolerance, a tiny bit of ability to see your window, you get back from this knee injury as quickly as possible and get on the field.
Well, I definitely appreciate your position. And if you had something to do with our debates that we've been having over the last couple of weeks, your points would have been valid. However, you did not. Therefore, your perspective doesn't necessarily apply to the beef that he and I had. Because when we're talking about Adrian Peterson, I'm not going to sit here and refute anything you said or he said. If all we're talking about is this is it for you, are you going for the championship or not? What I'm saying is, because you're AP and you think you have X number of years left in you, I'm looking along the lines of what's going to facilitate you being in the league for the next 3 or 4 years. I certainly have no disagreement with y'all if all y'all are saying is now is what it's all about. Your future is over, and that's it. But I don't believe that.
It's not about whether or not his future is over.
I don't believe that.
It's whether or not the window stays open. When you keep playing for a greater opportunity, when the best opportunity is in front of you.
Wait a minute. The NFL, more so than anybody, you can literally predict, excuse me, I'm going to be a contender. You're trying to tell me, just for the sake of argument, work with me here. If Adrian Peterson sits up there, approaching the last year of his contract, and has an opportunity to play for Aaron Rodgers. Or Bill Belichick is like, LeGarrette Blount's going to be up out of here. You could come here a la Randy Moss did with us a few years ago. You trying to tell me that, oh, the window of opportunity, you can't pass it by?
This is what I'm saying, since Will basically said that not for the reasons I said, and then you then said the exact same reasons I said.
How about that?
Let me tell you what.
No, mine's about winning a championship this year.
Right.
Yours was about his ability to keep playing in the league.
No, what I'm saying, that's part of it, certainly. In other words, if he comes back and plays well, he also has value. But my point is he's used up at the end of this year. This is the end of his contract anyway. From the team's point of view, come back. From his point of view, might as well let it all hang out now because they actually have a good team and they have a chance to do something. Now, if he's deluded into thinking, as many great athletes are, it's part of what makes them great. They have to constantly beat 1,000,000-to-1 odds. He's going to beat it again. I would say he's wrong-headed. Could he possibly be picked up and put in a good position by a team like the Patriots? Yes, but that will be a post-prime Adrian Peterson. He will not be paid like a top-flight running back. He will be paid like an older running back that has value in certain situations, which he might for a team like the Patriots. 2 yards a carry so far this year behind that line, and they have been the exact same team since he hasn't been on the field.
Exact to the extent that Asiata and McKinnon have also been averaging about 2.9 yards per carry. It's not Adrian Peterson's fault. It's that offensive line's fault. May there be an opportunity with Aaron Rodgers? Yes, maybe.
Well, you just quoted your own argument.
Yes, maybe.
You just quoted your own argument because if their offensive line is suspect, how does it buffer their chances?
I'm not arguing maybe. I'm saying is, and he can get behind this offensive line as bad as it is this year and enhance their ability to win a championship, which is a very real scenario for the Vikings this year.
But why will Kane put himself in that position if he has aspirations to be around for 3 to 4 more years?
And you win the game.
Excuse me, not when you can't play because your injury has sidelined
At the end of I'll tell you why, because let's say you're just looking at it from let's take the glory out of it and let's just look at it purely from a financial point of view going forward.
Okay.
Because based on the number of carries he's had in his career, his age, and his catastrophic injury and his production when last seen on the field. At the end of this contract, if he just didn't play anymore and started out next year, the next contract he got would not be nearly even in the ballpark
He's
of
had
this one.
2,412 carries in his career.
But what I'm saying is he needs to demonstrate some value on the field.
Quick story, because I dismissed Jerry Jones earlier. I want to give him credit here. When he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, Stephen Jones supposedly literally held him against the wall and said, we're not doing this, we're taking Zach Martin. And that's fine, it was the right decision. But Jerry said this to Stephen. Stephen, if you want to be great in this world, you can't go around hitting singles and doubles. Sooner or later, you got to aim for the fence. This year is Adrian Peterson's fence. This is the Minnesota Vikings fence. This is the year you swing to get over it. This is the year you go for it. If you want to play conservative, Stephen A., that's fine.
No, I'm not saying I leave the conservatism to you. You've got that down, Pat. But what I'm saying to you is
I don't agree with that either, Will, because the fact is Mike Zimmer's defense, I think, is chiefly responsible for the position they're in, and they're doing it without a great quarterback, and they're doing it without an O-line. So who's to say that he can't make this team better next year?
For better cards, and the pot will pass you by, Max. Keep waiting for better cards.
Okay.
I appreciate your position and invoking a little Jerry. Always good to have you, Will. Thank you for being with us. Always fun. Clippers coach Doc Rivers is not scared of the 73-win Warriors, even with the addition of Kevin Durant this offseason. I think we can play with anybody, and we don't feel like there's a gap. That's all we have to prove, and I think everyone has to prove that. I know history very well in this league, and there's been a lot of super teams put together, quote-unquote super teams, and I know the history. I feel comfortable where we're at, but that's fine if that's what people want to believe. Stephen A., do you think Rivers actually believes there's no gap between the Clippers and the Warriors?
No, I do not. I don't believe him for 1 second. He knows there's a gap. Because the man knows basketball. People may question him as an executive in terms of his ability to acquire players or whatever the case may be. What you can't question is his basketball knowledge. Doc Rivers knows basketball. I think he's an exceptional coach, particularly as a motivator. I'm a huge fan of his, but I also know that he is an eternal optimist, and he refuses to allow a defeatist attitude to enter his locker room. If you don't believe you can win, get the hell up out of here, because he doesn't have any time for some punks who wither beneath the pressure. He's not going to have that. And so Chris Paul's a pit bull. And we know that Jamal Crawford is my favorite sixth man. He can boogie on anybody. My nickname for him is And One, because that's how he looks when he's balling. It's like And One. Blake Griffin is a guy that averaged 23 and 9, but only played 35 games last year, missed 47. He's a guy that averaged 25 and 12 in the playoffs the year before getting hurt. But at some point in time, he's got to be the one that steps up. I don't put that on Chris Paul, because I don't see Chris Paul not doing something that his abilities says he can do. He's a leader. He's a floor general. He's an elite point guard in this game. Plus, with his miniature 6-foot self, he finds a way to put up his points, his assists, and defend. DeAndre Jordan, he irritated me, because I'm a fan of his and I like him, but he was another dude sitting up there acting like gold medals replace championships on the National Basketball Association. It does not. It does not. So I want to see what they're going to do. But there is no question. You had problems with the damn Warriors before they acquired Kevin Durant. What the hell you think it's going to be now? You saw those shots Harrison Barnes missed last year in the playoffs. Does anybody think that Kevin Durant's missing those shots? You saw how Andre Iguodala got hurt and he was missing some of those shots. You think Kevin Durant's going to miss those shots? Andrew Bogut, you don't need him to defend and rebound as much, because you're going to make up for it with the points that you're going to put forth. They might be challenged defensively, and they may have to get it together. But there is no question that offensively, with the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history, with Draymond Green being a rough rider, with Kevin Durant as that dude, who, by the way, is better all around than Steph Curry, the bottom line is, when we look at the Golden State Warriors, it's them and everybody else right now. And Doc Rivers, if I know that, Doc Rivers knows that. He just can't say so, and he can't allow his team to believe that, because then otherwise, why play the season? Everybody else will be there sitting like me, Max, feeling like dang.
First of all, I don't think they'll be challenged defensively at all. I think they're going to be excellent defensively, and I think their best defensive unit is with Draymond actually playing the 5, the way they swarm in the paint and everything. Okay, so look, last year, Doc could have made this claim. He could have said, look, there's no talent gap, because if you just simply stack the talent to the ceiling, you know, stacked who has the most talent, let's put it all together, the Clippers were comparable with the Thunder. the Warriors. And the Thunder. The difference was in the way the talent was arranged. Doc Rivers, the GM, hasn't done as good a job as some other GMs in terms of arranging the talent differently. For example, CP3, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan as a big three, boy, that's very talented. But it's a little bit redundant at times, even with CP3 and Blake. Blake kind of runs the offense the way, as a power forward, the way sort of CP3 runs the offense as a point guard. You don't need both necessarily on the same team. So the talent's not arranged properly. Once, you know, in order to counteract the Warriors had the kind of new NBA figured out pretty much. Once they add Kevin Durant, there's obviously a talent gap. I think what Doc is doing here is putting the onus on him. He's saying, look, the talent is similar. You know, even if they're better, they're not in a different league than us. May not be true anymore with the addition of Durant. So what does it come down to, Doc, in that case? The coaching. How are you deploying that talent? And Doc Rivers is a buck stops with him kind of guy, which is admirable. He rallies the troops. He gets guys to buy in and believe. I can even tell you as a Knicks fan, of all the point guards I've seen in my lifetime, that's after Walt Frazier, including Mark Jackson, including Derek Harper back in the day, Doc was the guy I wanted with the money on the line playing point guard for the Knicks. He's that kind of player, and here he's putting the pressure on himself as a coach.
I don't view it that way. I think it's him putting the pressure on Blake Griffin, which is where it belongs. Once again, DeAndre's DeAndre, CP is CP. Jamal Crawford is Jamal Crawford. Even J.J. Redick and Austin Rivers, they are who they are. The X factor is Blake Griffin because Blake Griffin is a star. He may not be a superstar, but his talent says he should be a superstar.
He's a superstar.
He's got to step up. I'm saying he's got to step up, but he's not a superstar to me. Now, yeah, he's a star, but a superstar rises to the occasion and closes, which he has yet to do. And so for me, you got people out there talking about how Paul George should be swapped for Blake Griffin. No, I would love it if the Clippers found a way to add Paul George with Blake Griffin. I can't
how do you intend to do that?
You can't do it. But I'm just saying, I wish. That's my wish list. Because if you had a Paul George, with a Blake Griffin at your 4, with a DeAndre at your 5, with a CP3 as your point guard, oh, now we got a different challenge here. And that would be apropos. But the only way for the Clippers to have closed the gap, the only way for the Clippers to knock off somebody as potent as Golden State is for Blake Griffin to be so unstoppable that you force the Golden State Warriors to deal with you instead of vice versa. And I can't see that yet. I can't see that yet. I got respect for this game. I can't see it.
Even before they got Kevin Durant, and obviously Steph is the #1 player on the team before then, and maybe still, was Draymond Green. That's the matchup problem. They can play 5 out with Draymond Green. That's the pick and roll partner. That's the guy who can create from the 5 position if he wants to. That's not DeAndre Jordan.
Right. Got to go, but let me say this. Paul Pierce announced he's going to retire. Looking forward to seeing him in the Hall of Fame.
Truth.
Rudy Gay wants out of Sac. If the Clippers get him,
take a bunch of long twos.
No.
From the
without Rudy Gay with CP3, playing the 3, keep Blake Griffin.
Rudy Gay's a dangerous player, Stephen A. Just good enough to sink you.
Oh.
Maybe.
I like him a lot, but he
didn't have CP3.
Not very efficient.
He didn't have CP3.
All right.
No, that's true
So
too.
hate it or love it, it's Golden State versus everybody. We're not buying Doc's words, but are you buying chips? Chip Kelly explains why Colin Kaepernick isn't playing, but someone at this desk is not buying it. The Boss, Jerome Bettis in the house to join that discussion. Back in a few. The Niners have lost 2 straight, and Blaine Gabbert has struggled in those games, prompting questions about whether Chip Kelly will make the change to back up Colin Kaepernick. But Kelly isn't going to make a change at quarterback right now, in part because he doesn't think Cap is healthy enough to handle the job. Quote, he's capable to be the backup, but I don't think he's ready to go full time. He's continuing to work on it. He had a serious layoff in terms of being able to medical rehab. To get the full cap for what you need, the potential of what he has, he needs to continue to just work on the physical aspect of things. The Hall of Famer, Jerome Bettis, in the house. How are you? Good
What's
to
up,
see you
man?
as always.
What's up, man? See you walking around the building here. You look like the bus, man. You're a big boy.
You know what? I do have to say one thing. You know, I've been following both of you guys and Max. You've come on and made a great impression, but you have made one big mistake.
Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham?
Adrian Peterson.
Oh, come on.
One big mistake. Hold on. Now I'm gonna explain to you because obviously you don't know the history of running backs like I do.
Right.
Okay, there is a hierarchy of running backs. It is not the age. A lot of people think 30 years old is the number. It's the attempts, the carries. That determines where you are. Now, your great running backs, 3,000 carry running backs. Your really good running backs, they average between 25 and 2,800.
Sure. He's at
and
24,
your good is that you get 2,000 carries. He is a 3,000 carry running back, which tells me 2 years. He's got two highly productive years left in you. I heard you say the 2 years that he was injured, that will bring him up to that 3,000 carries.
Here's the problem.
Okay?
Here's the
so
problem.
the fact that you're thinking that he's, he's over the hill, no.
Number of carries is a very good point. I would expect nothing less from you.
Also, you have to factor in one other thing.
Just keep in mind, y'all using up y'all time to talk about Kaepernick. Hurry up.
One last thing.
All right.
Declining numbers is what you talked about. When you have a quarterback that is a young quarterback, unfortunately, you're going to have declining numbers because the defenses are going to try to shut you down because you don't have the ability to throw the ball deep. Okay. So that's...
I appreciate that from a great, from a Super Bowl champion
Hall of Famer
who played the position. Saying that, of course, and you're absolutely right about the number of carries. Here's the problem.
I got the
Here's the problem. Adrian Peterson is coming off.
Just to show.
Adrian Peterson, who is in the argument for greatest ever. I mean, he's in that conversation. I get it. And he's a superhuman freak. I mean, he came back from an ACL, and now other guys think they can do it too.
Take your time. Take your time.
However,
I like seeing
he's now had 2 catastrophic injuries he's coming back from. He did not play with a young quarterback. Most recently, it was Sam Bradford who came in, and still he was averaging fewer yards per attempt. And he was getting the ball a lot.
In 2 games!
By the way, than anyone else on the team. So, well, this is not definitive, but my prediction was this would be his last.
You sound pretty damn definitive when it comes to Adrian Peterson, Max Kellerman.
I'm telling you this.
It's 2 games.
At the age of 30, at the age of 32, he ain't going to be elite anymore at the age of 32.
2 games for AP.
But you keep hinging on age.
Age has something to do with it, including injury.
It's not the major factor.
But it's including injury.
But he's proven that his catastrophic injuries is not the same as other players.
We'll see what it looks like by the end of the year.
Let me help you out. Did you know that that's not the only person that Max Kellerman has said these things about? Did you know that Max Kellerman also said that in 18 months, Tom Brady would be done?
It's good.
Done.
Less than that now. Less than that now. Done. Tom Brady. This guy. Let me tell you something.
This guy.
I told everyone at the time they gave Kobe Bryant the contract extension.
Oh, that don't count. That don't count. That don't count.
I got one right.
Let's go.
I got one right.
Derek Jeter is 2, and Peyton Manning was another. I told everyone at the time. Peyton Manning is gone. He's never coming back. You have seen the end of him.
Did you say it before he threw the 55 touchdowns?
I said it.
Did you say it before
after the injury on the 39 touchdown season when I saw him fall off the cliff?
Okay,
and then he went over 55.
No.
But not before.
Not 55, then 39. Remember, Luck led
39, and
Here's
then
what I'm saying about Tom Brady. In the
ahead.
history of humanity, in the history of the known universe,
Humanity.
no quarterback has ever performed at an elite level after the age of 40 in about 6 months. No one's done it at the age of 41. That's what Tom Brady will be at the end of next season, and I'm saying Tom Brady will not be the first.
Tom Brady's falling off the cliff. That's what he said.
I the sound effect from Max.
I haven't seen that cliff yet.
Show him.
I need to see that clip.
That's why it's a cliff. That's why it's a cliff. You don't see it coming. It's not gradual. It's sudden.
I'm just telling you. This is who this guy. This is what I thought that I was done dealing with this kind of stuff. I really did. And then all of a sudden this guy comes along. Adrian Peterson is
that one hurt me. That one hurt me.
This was the best part of my day. You coming in hot.
I could not let that go.
You had the numbers.
I heard the same
ready to go.
Wait a minute.
I heard the same thing about Peyton.
Here's where his argument. I'm gonna help him out just for a second.
Yeah.
The Adrian Peterson, hold on. The Adrian Peterson, take it when you can get it, brother. Take it when you get it. Adrian Peterson, injured. Derek Jeter, got hurt. Peyton Manning, the 4 neck surgeries, got hurt. Nothing has happened to Tom Brady
at all.
And this dude, like, 18 months. I mean, he didn't sit there and go like this. About 3 or 4 years.
Yes, he put a number on it.
He put a number on it.
16 months now. The clock's ticking.
16 months. Tom Brady is done.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know who else?
What?
You know who else is?
What?
Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Joe Montana. Just name a quarterback. Name whoever you want. No one has ever done it in the history of football, period.
So Max is of the mindset. Max brings up humanity.
Yes.
He also
the history
has
of the known universe.
History. Hold on. Let me get this straight. Humanity humanity, history of the known universe. His vocabulary is very extensive, by the way. It's very, very impressive, right? I mean, this Ivy grad, Ivy League grad. I mean, all of this other stuff, all of this stuff going on, right? So he does all of this, man. He does all of this.
Checks all the boxes.
And he checks all the boxes, you know? And then all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere and he's like this. There's no exception. So in other words, in Max's world, even with the extensive vocabulary, the word exception is obliterated from the dictionary of the thesaurus. It doesn't, it's not applicable.
Let me just say this. Father Time is undefeated with one draw against Bernard Hopkins. But otherwise, he has won every single battle.
So there's one draw.
One draw, Bernard Hopkins.
By the way, had he not fought Kovalev, it might still, he might be winning. He might be winning. He might be winning.
If you can bet on the exception, I'm telling you, it's 1,000,000 to 1 odds. So go ahead, take the 1,000,000 to 1.
I'm just telling you. I'm telling you, Adrian Peterson, I'm looking forward to telling you, you were clearly wrong.
Let's go, man.
Yeah.
Let's go to break.
I hope I am wrong.
I'm sorry.
That was so good.
I'm
So
sorry.
that Chip Kelly conversation, that got put to the side. We're going to do that coming up. This was great. I love it. You came out strong out of the gate. Coming after Max's world. Chip Kelly plays like calling out.
I'm
play. Someone has to guess. Is it buying it? You guys can't hear me? Be quiet. We're talking Kaepernick next.
You've been saying this multiple days.
Welcome back. We didn't get to get into our earlier topic because Jerome came in hot for Max on AP, but let's talk a little Kaepernick here. So obviously the 49ers lost their last two. Blaine Gabbert has struggled. People are calling for Colin Kaepernick to play, but Chip Kelly's blaming it on his health. Jerome, are you buying Chip's explanation?
I'm buying it right now, maybe one more week, because the problem is very glaring. Blaine Gabbert is not getting the job done. When you look at the numbers, I mean, he's last in yards per attempt, 27th in passing yards, completion percentage, 31st out of 32 quarterbacks. So he's clearly not getting the job done. And I can understand if you're Chip Kelly saying, I want to give him a chance to get fully healthy so now we can insert him and go with him for the rest of the season. If it lasts past another week and they lose, now it's in that situation where now you don't want to play him because of the possibility of inciting a bigger issue now that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I think right now I'll give him one more week, but with the way Blaine Gabbert is playing, you have to put in the backup quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is. If it wasn't Kaepernick, you'd still have to put in your backup quarterback because your starting quarterback is not getting the job done. So it's just a matter of time. All you got is one more week before we've got to call you to the carpet and say, why are you not playing Colin Kaepernick?
Under normal circumstances with a normal coach, I agree with you. This is Chip Kelly. He's stubborn. I give it 2 or 3 weeks, and I think Colin Kaepernick will be the starting quarterback within 2 or 3 weeks. Let's not forget, him not starting predates the anthem stance, right? Him not starting, they were talking about and it was also, he kind of lost the locker room, it seems to me, when he wants a trade, even though they bring in a coach that seems perfect for him, right? So now he's got to win back the locker room, which I think the anthem stance has rallied some of the troops at least around him, which could be good. Also, dead arm, to me, sounds like injury, but sounds like a shoulder or labrum, something. It sounds like an injury. But let's not forget, he's already been on the field for a snap, at least against the Rams, right, in that shutout. Kaepernick has been on the field for the Niners this season, and Gabbert's no good, and Kaepernick's probably already better. But if Chip Kelly looks at him and goes, no, he can be the franchise quarterback, he wants to make sure all systems are go before he's on the field. Chip Kelly has come out and said he supported Kaepernick and even argued with a reporter about his anthem stance. He has to know who he studied him in Nevada, like, you know, because he was running that kind of offense. He's got to believe eventually Kaepernick's the answer. 2 to 3 weeks, he's the starter. He'll end the season that way, barring injury.
Nice of you to change the narrative, and I appreciate that because we've discussed this in the past, and I'm not refuting anything either of you are saying as it pertains to what Kaepernick has been through and how he'll eventually be forced to be put into the starting lineup. My position, however, is that don't tell me that his stance on the national anthem has nothing to do with him sitting down. And I'm not saying that Chip Kelly is against him in any way. I'm saying I don't trust Chip Kelly to some degree because of what happened in Philadelphia. I'm also saying that when you are preoccupied with something other than football, that usually provides a head coach of Chip Kelly's control freak nature. as an incentive not to put you in that position. And even though you got to think about the team, you got to think about the fan base, you got to think about rallying the folks to support your product, you got to think about the business side and what kind of influence Ned York and others and Trent Baalke and them have had upon you. I am not in any way saying that Colin Kaepernick won't be starting. I am not in any way avoiding or acting oblivious to the fact that he had alienated the locker room, that he had wanted to be traded, the dead arm issue that Kellerman brought up, and all of this other stuff. At the end of the day, this is Chip Kelly we're talking about. This is Trent Baalke we're talking about, who ran away a head coach that didn't agree with him. This is Ned York and this dysfunctional franchise that we're talking about here. Don't tell me that Colin Kaepernick's, albeit, you know, in some people's eyes, courageous and admirable position, while in others is obviously not the case, so that makes it a divisive issue. Don't tell me that Colin Kaepernick's stance on the national anthem had absolutely, positively nothing to do
exactly what I'm telling
with
you.
him sitting down right now.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Because Blaine Gabbert, as my man Chris Carter always said, Blaine Gabbert stinks. And I'm sorry, I don't think that you're allowed to stink. But I was sick 2 weeks because they did win 28-0 on opening night against the Los Angeles Rams. But don't tell me that you can stink and still Colin Kaepernick, who took this team to the Super Bowl 3-4 years ago, that has nothing to do with him sitting down. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. It's just a belief, but that's all. I don't believe it.
I'll say this. A team is 1-2, okay? They still believe they have a chance to go to the playoffs. 1-3 becomes that much harder for you to get from up under. But it's still possible. You know, 1-4, you're pretty much done. So I think this is the pivotal week for them from a football standpoint. And I think this week tells the story. Now, you can
think
argue.
they're going to the playoffs?
No.
I'm
saying you have to believe that. As a coach, you got to think that you can.
You played on some winning teams, man. It's not every team.
I'm not saying they have the team to do it, but as a coach, he's saying the quarterback can change our fortunes. We've got a decent defense. If our offense can give us anything, we'll have a chance.
Well, what I'm saying, Bus, is that they can do that as long as they come on at some point this season. Chip is set up going forward.
But here's the point that, no, they're not, because you got to think Colin Kaepernick is at the end of a contract. So now he's got to show management that Colin Kaepernick deserves a contract throughout all this issue. So now what he has to do is make sure all of those issues are gone. How they go away is the need to have to put Colin Kaepernick in. If you put him in too early, now management is saying, hey, what'd you do? If you wait until, hey, guys, I need him in order for us to go further, then they have to relent and say, okay.
I want to respond to that.
From a Chip Kelly standpoint, it saves him from management, like you said, and now it's only a football decision and not a social.
I want to respond to that. They're not going to the playoffs. I mean, let's disabuse anyone of that notion.
I'm not saying
what I'm saying is, from Chip Kelly's point of view, all he needs is for Kaepernick to come and go 4-4 in the second half of the season. If he does that, not only are they good, could they keep Kaepernick at a discount, because I do agree his anthem stance has probably devalued him on the open market, but to the Niners and Chip Kelly, extreme value over the second half of the season. If they can even go 500, they have something. It saves Chip Kelly's job, and everything's okay.
If you're going to give Kaepernick $75 million, say it's a discount, he's got to get that team close to going to the playoffs. You can't justify giving him $75, $80 million and they don't perform very well. You just can't do it.
Keeping folks on their toes. Thank you so much for being with us. We will see you again soon. Coming up next, Chris Bosh fails his physical and his playing days seem to be over in Miami. But should he retire? We will discuss and react next.
First Take is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty stands with you. And Wendy's new grilled chicken sandwich.
Heat President Pat Riley says he believes Chris Bosh has played his final game in Miami and the team is not actively trying to bring him back. The Heat said Friday that Bosh would not be allowed to participate in their preseason training camp after failing a physical. Bosh has faced 2 bouts with blood clots, once in February of 2015 and again this past February. In statements released in recent days, Bosh said he's ready to play and was written off by the team when the second bout with clots began. Riley strongly denied that assessment, saying that the team worked to clear Bosh Asked if he's felt Bosh's NBA career was over, Riley said, "That is up to him." Stephen A., with health concerned, should he retire?
Yeah, he should. Yeah, he should. If you hear sensitivity, trepidation in my voice, Max, is because, you know, if you know Chris Bosh, he's a really, really great guy. He really is. He's a good person. He loves the game. When healthy, this dude is good for 19 and 9 a game. He's a two-time champion. He can really play. I contend that they would have been in the conference finals last year against Cleveland had he been healthy. And I've spoken to several people very, very close to him, as well as him himself, over the last several months, and knew how much he was fighting to get back, to the point where he had some questions, some trepidation about the Miami Heat. But it's clear, if you failed the second physical, and you're talking about blood clots that ultimately get up and mess with your lungs, you got 5 kids, you got a beautiful wife, you got beautiful friends and loved ones, you're still guaranteed the $76 million owed to you. My man, you can't risk that. You gotta let it go. And he fired his agent, Henry Thomas, over the weekend. They're still in shock because they didn't know why. I know how much he loved his agent, and his agent's the one that got him that $118 million when there was nobody else out there, Max, to give him more than 88. So clearly it's one of those situations where Chris Bosh appears to be fighting off the obvious, and take that money, man, go home, be with your family. Don't jeopardize your life like that.
I co-sign that. It's tough to tell a person what to do with their lives. Yeah. It's their life. And it speaks to Chris Bosh's character that he wants to earn the money more than that. This has to be only because he loves basketball.
That's right.
And he's always played that way. He went from a 20-10 guy on a playoff contender every year to a guy who was often maligned unfairly because his numbers weren't big, because he unselfishly sacrificed his numbers to win championships. Oh, he's giving you 8 points and 8 rebounds. That's not a great player, but if you watched the game, you knew he was much better than some players who were putting up 20 and 10 plus. Right. A truly great player, plays for the love of the game, obviously, and therefore I totally agree with you. Don't risk your life, even though you want to do it. It's important for other people who are grown-ups to say, we can't let you do it.
If you know him and you care about him, you want to support him. I don't know this. I tried to reach out to him yesterday, wasn't able to catch him. I really believe this is one of those situations where it's going to take LeBron or D. Wade, somebody like that, to say, bro, it ain't worth it. And I don't know if they'll do that because they may not feel it's their place, but I think it might take that in order for him to stop.
It's so hard to take away something someone loves so much. That's their identity.
He's a special
But your health is paramount, as you guys alluded to.
5 kids.
Good show today. I think Jerome Bettis won the show, though. I don't know that. Max, you were pretty good.
I know it damn well wasn't Will Kane.
Shots fired. See you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.